Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're tackling a question that honestly sounds a bit like the start of a weird joke.
Yeah, what do school teachers and sumo wrestlers have in common?
Exactly. We're basing this whole discussion just on Chapter 1 of Freakonomics, and we're going to explore these really unexpected links.
Between these two professions that just seem worlds apart, it definitely makes you pause, doesn't it? A teacher, shaping young minds versus this massive athlete in a ring.
What's the connection?
And the chapter argues, really brilliantly, I think, that the answer lies in these hidden incentives, how they shape what people do, sometimes in really surprising ways.
Okay, let's unpack this then. The central puzzle, like we said, straight from the chapter title. What do school teachers and sumo wrestlers have in common? That's our thread. And the book gets right to it. It suggests the link, maybe unexpectedly, is cheating.
Which sounds kind of jarring for both, maybe.
Definitely. But it argues it's not just random bad behavior. It's tied to specific pressures in their fields. So let's start with the teachers. What were the pressures they were under?
Well, this is where it gets interesting. You have this push for accountability in schools, right? High-stakes testing became a huge deal.
To measure performance, make sure kids are learning. Seems reasonable on the surface.
Sure, the intention was good, but the pressure on teachers based on those test scores, it ramped up massively.
So it wasn't just like professional pride.
Oh no, we're talking real consequences. Poor student scores could mean, getting chewed out, losing out on raises or promotions.
Okay.
Even bigger things like school funding cuts, be put on probation, or actually losing your job.
Wow.
But on the flip side, good scores could mean praise, maybe a bonus, promotions. So the stakes were genuinely high.
So the tests meant to improve things kind of created this perverse incentive.
Exactly. Some teachers felt they had to prioritize the scores, maybe even over the actual learning itself.
So with that kind of pressure, the chapter talks about a pretty direct way some teachers tried to game the system. How were they doing it?
Well, it seems some resorted to directly changing answers.
You mean on the actual student test papers?
Yeah. After the students took the test, but before the sheets were scanned and graded.
So erasing wrong answers.
Erasing wrong answers, filling in the correct ones. Pretty blatant when you think about it. A direct way to inflate those scores and, protect themselves.
Okay, so that's the how. But how did anyone even find out this was happening? It's not like teachers were advertising it.
Right, good question. It wasn't easy.
Patterns, like what?
Well, one major red flag was seeing a bunch of students in one class suddenly getting really hard questions right,
Okay.
but missing the easy ones they should have known.
Yeah.
Statistically, that just doesn't make sense if the learning is genuine.
Right. You build up knowledge. You don't suddenly master calculus, but forget basic addition.
Exactly. Another big one was seeing these massive, unbelievable jumps in classroom scores one year, only for them to plummet back down the next year. That kind of spike isn't usually sustainable learning. It suggests something else is going on.
Like an artificial boost. And they had a specific example, didn't they? This Classroom A.
Yes, Classroom A was the sort of poster child for this. They ran the data through what they called a cheating algorithm.
An algorithm to detect cheating.
Yeah, basically looking for those suspicious patterns like blocks of identical answers or those weird easy hard question results. And when they analyzed Classroom A, the signs were apparently really clear.
And to make it concrete, they showed specific student scores, right, from Classroom A compared to another more typical class.
Absolutely. It really highlights the difference. Take student 3 in Classroom A. Their scores went 3.0 one year,
Okay.
then jumped to 6.5 the next year, a huge leap, and then fell back to 5.1 the year after.
Right. And you should expect some real aha moments here, looking at, hidden incentives and behaviors you wouldn't normally connect. Wow, that's quite a ride.
Yeah, and similar patterns for others. Student 5 went 3.6 up to 6.3, then back to 4.9. Student 14, 3.8 up to 7.1, then down to 5.6.
Okay, so big peaks and valleys. How did that compare to, say, Classroom B?
Much more stable. In Classroom B, over the same 3 years, you saw scores like 4.2, then 5.1, then 6.0. Steady progress.
Makes sense. That looks like actual learning happening over time.
Exactly. The erratic up and down in Classroom A strongly pointed to that middle year being, well, not entirely legitimate.
And you have to think about the kids in that situation, promoted based on false scores.
Yeah, it's really problematic. They get moved ahead, but they don't actually have the foundation, so they struggle later on.
It seems pretty self-serving on the part of the teachers involved then, less about the students.
That's the argument the chapter makes, that under this intense pressure, the primary driver was protecting their own careers. the students, unfortunately, could end up being collateral damage.
And did they find this happening more in the certain types of classrooms?
They did. The analysis showed teachers in the lowest scoring classrooms were the most likely to cheat.
Which makes a grim kind of sense, right? They had the most to lose.
Precisely. They were facing the biggest risks. The chapter also mentioned some suspicion around bonus systems, like in California at the time, suggesting that direct financial rewards tied to scores could also, maybe unintentionally, nudge people towards cheating.
But it wasn't all about catching cheaters, was it? Didn't the same data analysis help identify really good teachers too?
That's a crucial counterpoint, yeah. The algorithms weren't just finding problems. They could also spotlight teachers whose students showed genuine sustained improvement.
How did that look different in the data?
With the effective teachers, you saw students making real gains on the stuff they struggled with before, like the easier questions they used to miss. And crucially, those gains stuck. They didn't disappear the next year. That signals real learning took hold.
Okay, so that covers the teachers, the high stakes, the cheating, the detection, and even finding the good performers. Now let's completely shift gears. Sumo wrestling.
Right. Ancient tradition, very different world.
What are the incentives here? What's the high-stakes game in sumo?
It all revolves around the ranking system. It's incredibly hierarchical and rigid.
The banzuk, right.
Exactly. A wrestler's rank determines everything. Their salary, their privileges, their status. And performance in the tournaments, which happen every 2 months, is how you move up or down.
So what's the magic number in a tournament?
8 wins out of 15 bouts. An 8-7 record, or better, is called kachikoshi. That's a winning record. And it usually guarantees you either keep your rank or get promoted. 7 wins or fewer, make koshi usually means demotion.
Okay, so 8-7 is critical. And there's one specific scenario on the very last day of the tournament that's super high stakes, isn't there? The 7-7 guy.
Oh, absolutely. If you're a wrestler with a 7-7 record going into your final match, that matches everything.
Win and you get 8-7, kachikoshi, promotion likely. Lose and you're 7-8, make koshi, demotion likely.
Precisely. The difference between winning and losing that one bout is massive for your career. Now think about their opponent. Let's say that opponent already has 8 wins and 6 losses.
Okay, so they've already got their winning record locked in.
Right. For them, getting a 9th win is nice, sure, but it doesn't have nearly the same immediate dramatic impact on their rank as that 8th win does for the 7-7 guy.
Ah, I see where this is going. The stakes are totally different for the two wrestlers in that specific matchup. Might the 8-6 wrestler maybe not try quite as hard, or even deliberately lose to the 7-7 guy?
Could they? Is there an incentive for match fixing or some kind of collusion? That's the core question the chapter dives into for sumo.
And it mentions the sumo world is pretty small and close-knit at the top levels.
Very. Only about 66 wrestlers in the top 2 divisions at any time. They fight each other constantly. They know each other well. That closeness could, potentially, make arranging things easier.
What kind of arrangements are we talking about? What's the incentive for the 8-6 guy to throw the match?
Well, the chapter floats a couple of ideas. One is straightforward bribery cash changing hands, though that's obviously hard to track.
Sure.
Another possibility is more like a favor system. You help me out today when I desperately need this win, and maybe I'll help you out down the line when you're in a similar spot. Given the pressures, these kinds of unrecorded deals seem plausible.
Okay, plausible theory. But just like with the teachers, did they have data to back this up?
Yes, and the data analysis here is really clever. They looked at the historical win percentages for these specific final day matches. The 7-7 wrestler versus the 8-6 wrestler.
And what do they typically find?
Typically, the 7-7 wrestler wins those matches surprisingly often, something like close to 80% of the time.
80%. That seems really high if an 8-6 guy is supposed to be slightly better ranked usually.
It does seem high, which already kind of raises an eyebrow. But here's the kicker. They then looked specifically at tournaments that happened right after major allegations of match fixing had become public.
So when there was more scrutiny on the sport, let me guess, it dropped.
It dropped significantly, down to around 50%, much closer to what you might expect based on pure chance, or maybe the 8-6 wrestler having a slight edge.
Wow, from nearly 80% down to 50%, that's a huge shift.
It's a massive statistical anomaly. And the timing right after the scandals broke strongly suggests that maybe those high win rates before weren't always entirely legitimate, that the scrutiny changed the behavior.
And wasn't there also some testimony? People actually coming forward?
Yes, the chapter does mention that. Yeah. Before the book came out, 2 former sumo wrestlers had actually gone public with detailed accusations of widespread match fixing, bribery, and other corruption.
So you had the statistical evidence and these firsthand accounts kind of lining up. So, okay. We've looked at teachers under pressure from tests and sumo wrestlers under pressure from the ranking system. And in both cases, we find this surprising potential for Well, cheating or dishonesty driven by those pressures.
Yeah, it really boils down to that core economic idea. Incentives matter. A lot.
It's the central theme, isn't it? Understanding the incentives helps explain behavior that might otherwise seem irrational or just plain wrong.
Absolutely. It cuts across totally different fields, different cultures. Whether it's a classroom in Chicago or a sumo ring in Tokyo, these underlying forces can shape what people do.
No, the chapter doesn't only focus on cheating, does it? It briefly brings in another example using data to understand behavior, the bagel man.
Right, that's a great little contrast. It shifts from dishonesty driven by high stakes to looking at everyday honesty.
Tell us about that quickly.
Sure. So this guy, Paul Feldman, used to deliver bagels to offices on an honor system. He'd leave bagels in a cash box, and people were supposed to pay.
Okay, a risky business model.
You'd think. But he kept meticulous records of how much money he collected versus how many bagels he left. Basically, he had years of data on honesty rates in different workplaces.
And what did he find? Did people actually pay?
Mostly, yeah, but the payment rates varied. He found things like smaller offices tended to be more honest than bigger ones. Office morale seemed to play a role.
Interesting. Any other factors?
He even noticed a temporary spike in honesty right after 9/11, which is fascinating. And maybe counterintuitively, he suspected that people higher up the corporate ladder might actually be slightly less honest with the bagel payments than those lower down.
Huh. So even small things like paying for a bagel are influenced by incentives and social context.
Exactly. It's another way of using simple data to get a glimpse into the hidden side of human behavior, just like analyzing test scores or sumo match outcomes. It shows how data can reveal these unseen forces.
So bringing it all together then, just focusing on this link between the teachers and the sumo wrestlers from Chapter 1, what's the main takeaway?
I think the core insight is just how powerful incentives are. You have these two vastly different worlds, education, sumo, but in both, when the stakes get high enough, whether it's job security tied to test scores or rank tied to winning matches, the pressure creates an environment where some individuals will bend or break the rules to succeed within that system. The common thread is the human response to strong incentives.
It really is remarkable finding that same principle at work in such different places. It definitely makes you look at things differently.
It really does. And maybe that's the final thought to leave people with. Think about the incentives, maybe the hidden ones that are operating in your own life, in your job, in your community, even in things you see in the news.
Ask yourself,
Yeah,
what do people really stand to gain or lose here?
exactly. If you start looking for those underlying motivations, you might just uncover some surprising things about why people do what they do.